I say this over and over again in all the previous podcasts, but I love how something as simple as a bow can bring so many people together and create all these connections. So it's really cool.
Yeah, archery is awesome. I mean, that's all I have to say about it. It's been a driving force for me from the beginning, and it's something that I'll do till I'm dead. I mean, there's no other way to put it.
Love that. Welcome to the Range Podcast. I'm Ricky Bruley, and with me is Jake Hollywood Iverson. Join us at the archery range, where we'll tell stories from the hunt, discuss technical bow shooting tactics and gear, and pick the brains of some of the most successful people to ever shoot a bow. Whether you're about to shoot that X for the win or send an arrow at a trophy buck, this podcast is for you. The Range Podcast is brought to you by Vapor Trail Archery, makers of the best bowstrings money can buy, originators of limb-driven arrow rest technology, and innovators of Stokerized stabilizer systems. Welcome to The Range, everybody. I'm your host, Ricky Bruley, and today we are recording from my home studio. As you can see, it's pretty fancy. I'm over here in a spare bedroom, got a little bit of storage back here, but you know what? There's a lot of things in this room, helps keep the echo down, and it actually sounds really good. So things have been incredibly busy. As some of you may know, I've got a ton of irons in the fire right now, so it's been difficult for me to find time to record in the Vapor Trail studio. So here we are. Thank you all for joining us today. You can find the video version of this episode on the Vapor Trail YouTube channel, so please head on over and subscribe. Give us a like and hit that bell so you can be up to date on all things archery. Don't forget to follow us at the Range Podcast on Instagram and on Facebook, as well as Vapor Trail Archery and Stokerized Stabilizers. On the show today is a force to be reckoned with in the mountains of the West. Whether he's nerding out as a hydrologist with the U.S. Forest Service, hunting, skiing, or biking, Josh Boyd will spend over 200 days a year in the backcountry. Josh is a Sitka Big Game Ambassador, and another notable passion is his love for writing, which has donned the pages of Bowhunter Magazine, Eastmans Bowhunting Journal, and rockslide.com, just to name a few. Stick around. This was a great conversation. You're not going to want to miss it. Well, hey, Josh, thanks a lot for being here today. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Yeah. Surviving here in Western Montana. Doing awesome, actually. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's kind of a strange thing going on here for January. I'm in Minnesota and we have no snow. I'm looking out the window right now and it's bizarre. I've never had in all the years never had this happen. So is it similar to that, like that for you over there as far as the climate and everything?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we had a week and a half ago, we had 14 inches of snow here on the ground. We had 35, 40 below weather or degrees below zero. Oof. At that time, and we had some snow, and now I got up this morning, it was 36, and we have maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 inches of hard snow out there, and it's been warm. Like December was warm, January was warm. We had that one, 7-8 days of cold weather, but it's back to that really warm temp. It's a little scary.
Yeah, it kind of makes you wonder if this is going to be just kind of an isolated deal for this season, and we're going to kind of go back into what we've had in the past, or if it's going to play out for a few years.
Yeah, I hear people use the term "this is our new norm," but yeah. I know what we're experiencing right now is due to the the oscillation of the ocean temperatures, and it was predicted. Back in back in September, October, I was looking at the forecast, the extended forecast, and they were saying my part of the world of the Northwest part of the United States, they're looking at hot or warmer temperatures and less precip. So, and they've been spot on.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Hopefully next year we're out of this cycle because we definitely need the water. We need the snowpack.
Yeah. Makes me a little bit worried about some things, for the future, but the only thing we can do is just wait and see, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and also your archery origin story, like what got you into archery and then, eventually into bow hunting.
Yeah. So I was raised I was born in the 70s, raised as a 70s child, free range. My parents kind of jumped around. My dad worked for the Forest Service, and he kind of bounced around between, places in Montana and Idaho. But some of my earliest memories of childhood were just running around in the woods by myself and with other kids, kind of in the same neighborhoods, with making spears and bows and whatnot out of willows, and just running wild out there. And I just remember, like, I would just grab my little willow bow that my dad helped me make, and I would walk around the woods pretending I was like shooting elk and deer and whatever. I mean, that's all I wanted to do since I was a little kid, was go hunt. And I was intrigued with archery for some reason. My dad wasn't a bow hunter, but when they moved to this small town in western Montana, I ran around with some kids in the neighborhood right behind our house, and their dads bow hunted, and they had, early 80s style, like PSE bows were really big out here. And they had, just these, some of them had recurve limbs. Most of them were straight limbed, little tiny wheels on them, steel cables with the teardrop and the Dacron strings. And they were shooting like really high poundage to get extra speed. Like, I remember some guys were shooting like 100 pounds.
Yeah, that's
which
wild.
was insane. And they had, aluminum arrows and big, heavy, long plastic fletch. And there's a lot of recurve hunters here as well.
Yeah.
But I just remember seeing a couple of these guys bringing elk back in September when I was like, 8, 9, 10. And I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to bow hunt elk. That is like my life's goal. And so I traded, I had a fly rod that my dad had given me, maybe for my birthday or something. And I ended up trading that fly rod to my buddy down the street for a old Sears compound bow that I couldn't really even pull back. It was like 50 pounds. They used to sell those in like J.C. Penney and the Sears catalog. And I traded him a fly rod for the thing, and I couldn't draw it, but I wanted to shoot it so bad. So my parents were like, let's go down to the archery shop and we'll have the guy, maybe get a bow that'll fit you. You seem like you're interested. So I got a little Martin Littlejohn wooden riser, and man, I took that thing everywhere, hunted everything I could, chipmunks, ground squirrels, songbirds.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of how I started. I just, and some of my friends' parents would kind of help me out. The ones that did bow hunt, they'd be like, come down to our yard. We have a bale set up. You can shoot here anytime. They would teach me how to shoot, form, help me adjust my sights. I mean, I was shooting fingers. Releases weren't a thing at the time. I mean, they were starting to kind of come around, but I mean, people really were just shooting fingers.
Right.
So yeah, it was a wild time. Kind of fun to be part of it.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned willow trees. My neighbor absolutely hated me and my buddies because they had a willow tree in their yard, and we would go over there and then just grab because you can grab the branches, and then we would just hang from them and just rip the branch off. And then you could take, the thicker part, use that as your bow, and you could use the thinner part at the end as your string. And then we'd, whittle arrows and stuff. Man, we could shoot those things pretty far. I mean, not accurately, but we would just, just launch them. And it just brought me back to those times. And that's really kind of where mine sparked too. And then, eventually, I was hunting with my dad and started doing that. But you had mentioned that you work for the Forest Service. So tell us a little bit about that. I noticed, like, on your Instagram page, you classify yourself as a stream nerd, which I thought was pretty funny. Speak a little bit more about that, because that's pretty intriguing, and obviously, you're talking about weather patterns and stuff like that. So that probably has a lot to do with your day to day, right?
Yes. Yeah. So I work for the Forest Service in the field of hydrology. So basically, I just monitor, measure water streams, water quality, sediment levels, stuff like that. So it's all mostly dealing with surface water. So anything that flows off the landscape. Some of it I deal a little bit with groundwater and how it interacts with surface water. But that my day-to-day job is monitoring stream flows, sediment loads, and what else? Just yeah, water quality and water volume. Me and my coworkers will initiate like stream restoration projects where we'll look at a river and see whether or not it's, damaged, and kind of come up with a solution to repair it. So yeah, that's kind of the bulk of it. Just every day out and about in the stream channels. Yeah, so I guess to get to your question, why am I a stream nerd? It's just because that, I mean, it's a huge part of my job, but I look at streams through a certain lens, and I look at the shape and the texture of them, and just I all the training that I've had and all the training that I've given to other people, it's really kind of just made me kind of nerd out about streams.
Mm-hmm.
I have just a huge interest in them. I love to look at them. There's some type of beauty in looking at them from at ground level, looking at them from the aerial level. I love aerial shots of streams and just looking at their form and their function and how they how they work through the landscape. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I just kind of geek out on them. I don't know if you knew this, but um, one of Aldo Leopold's sons was a pretty famous. He ended up becoming a pretty famous hydrologist and
Okay.
was a professor at UC Berkeley. His
Mm.
name was Luna Leopold, and he was kind of the godfather of like modern hydrology.
Okay. Wow.
Super interesting guy. I mean,
Yeah.
worked his magic in a whole different, you know, realm that we're in now. But back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, he was laying the groundwork for what we have today and a lot of the basic knowledge that we have. From bed load to suspended sediment to channel morphology, all these weird concepts in the hydrology world.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just kind of neat that um, it all kind of ties back to this kind of well-known ecologist slash wildlife biologist
Right.
from who really had a major impact on conservation in
Right.
the United States.
Yeah, and it was interesting. Because you've got a film here that you posted a little while back, anyways. But and there's some really cool information in there that I didn't know. And before I even, I read your caption, and you had kind of discussed a little bit about like reconstruction. And I found that kind of interesting too. And then as I watched the film, it just makes sense how you can kind of move some things around in order to make certain things happen. And I don't want to get too much into detail because I think everybody should go to your Instagram page and sift through it. One thing, give you a follow, and then also check out that video because it's really interesting. You're going to learn some stuff that probably you didn't know before. Especially if you're like in the conservation world and you have concerns about all that kind of stuff. So definitely go check that out.
Yeah, I was just going to say, making that film was, that was that's sort of a passion project for me. I was approached by a group that wanted to see something made that kind of covers some of the work that I do, um, but also, with other partners.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just me by myself doing this work. It's a whole host of people.
Right.
But I'm just a single player. But I really have a passion for the work that we do, and just like I love to be able to showcase some of the work that we do in sort of an intriguing way, and
Mm-hmm.
so and make it educational. So
Right.
that was the goal of that video.
Yeah, and I don't think people realize like some of the stuff that's going on behind the scenes, you know what I mean? Like and as hunters too, I think we take for granted all this, all the expanse of land that we have access to, and then the things and the people that play roles in making sure that we have those places to go, and then to make sure that they're preserved, not just, mostly for the wildlife, but also for us, to recreate on. So, I just thought it was really cool. I'm like, oh, yeah, I love learning new stuff, and especially like just knowing that people in the hunting community as well are contributing back. And I think there's a lot of people that don't realize that. So that's awesome. Good job. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, yeah, no problem. Yeah, my pleasure. It's fun.
So I just wanted to chat real quick about how we met. And this is actually the first conversation that we've had. Garrett Rock, a mutual friend of ours, he introduced us. And for those who missed the interview that I did with him, be sure to go back and check that one, because that was a really great episode. But anyway, so he introduced us, and I want to read what he said about you in the email, because it like really speaks to your character. And I think it's really important that people know who you are outside of like the incredibly beautiful content that you put out on your social media channels. And so this is part of what he said in the email. He said, Ricky, Josh is too humble to brag about his hunting accomplishments, outdoor accomplishments, and family man accomplishments, but they are beyond the realm of comprehension for most Western hunters. The numbers would leave most assuming Josh has some sort of privileged access or lacks a job. Neither are true. He's just that good. And I thought that was really great. And then to which you replied, you said, thank you for the introduction as well as the kind words. They are extremely meaningful coming from a guy as solid as yourself. Just this morning, I listened to your podcast on the drive to the office, and it was fun to listen and offered some insight into what makes you tick. Super relatable. So the reason I wanted to read that is because I wanted to say thank you for listening. And also it's really good to hear that the content is relatable. And, people don't have a tendency to like just come right out of the woodwork and be like, hey, you're doing great. Keep on going, keep on going. So you kind of just like creating this stuff and you don't really know if it's impacting anybody or not. And so I appreciate you saying that, because now it's like, now I know, like, even if the work that I'm doing only impacts one or two people, it just, to me, that means a lot. And that's all that I need to just like keep on going. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of work that goes into making a podcast. And so it's really good just to get that feedback back. And so I really appreciate that. And I just also want people to know, the kind of guy that you are, and the personality that you have. So, thank you for that, and keep on just being awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, I think listening to your guys' discussion was great. It was very relatable. I mean, I think just having like just regular people on that have an interesting story and are, can articulate their thoughts. It just, I don't know, it just makes it interesting to listen to. And I think if you keep that up, you're going to do great.
Yeah.
Yeah. And thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I feel honored, and just, and kind of just like upon doing some research and things, and, just looking through your social media pages and everything, it's like, you're pretty well connected. And what blows my mind is that, and the same thing like with Garrett, is that we've only been just one person removed. You know what I mean? We both have the same passions, grew up during similar times, with archery in our lives for the most part. And so, just kind of cool that now we're connecting, and now we're having these chats. And that's, again, I say this over and over again in all the previous podcasts, but I love how something as simple as a bow can bring so many people together and create all these connections. So it's really cool.
Yeah, archery is awesome. I mean, that's all I have to say about it.
Yeah.
It's been a driving force for me, like I said earlier, from the beginning. And
Yeah.
it's something that I'll do till I'm dead. I mean, there's no other way to put it.
Yeah. That just made me think too of a gentleman that stopped into our pro shop here the other day, and he's got a bow that he wants to get some new cams on it so it'll fit his draw length and everything like that. And man, he is, I don't know how old he is, but he just kept saying, I can't, I will shoot a bow until the day I die. He kept saying to me, he was like, I know I look like a beaten dog that just got hit by a car, but I'm going to keep shooting a bow for the rest of my life. And I'm just like, I love that, because I'm like, you could shoot a crossbow, right? And he goes, well, what do you think about crossbows? And I said, oh, to be honest with you, I don't really like them. He goes, well, there you go. So, again, the passion that it puts in people, and And I just love, it'd be easy to just go to a crossbow, but he refuses to. He's going to keep shooting a bow till the day he dies. So I love that. I also want to talk about, you're a writer, and you write for some pretty well-known publications. And with all the days you spend in the field, I guess it's only fitting that you write product reviews as well. And so a lot of the product reviews that you have out there are currently on rockslide.com. I wanted to ask, what would you say is your favorite piece of gear that you used in 2023?
I would say, without giving it a whole lot of thought, it would have to be EXO's new K4 backpack. It's an incredible piece of gear. I've tested and used almost every backpack on the market. And over the years, I've written, I don't know how many reviews on Rockslide, covering Stone Glacier, EXO, Sitka backpacks. And they're all great. Don't get me wrong. I've owned Kafaru's, Mystery Ranch. I've got a couple of those hanging out. They all are awesome packs, but to me, this EXO just checked all those boxes. It's light, it's stable, it's incredibly comfortable, it's simple in the way it operates, like, pulling the bag off the frame and whatnot. It's super adjustable. It ticked every box that I really needed in a backpack. And so it really stood out. And I didn't write a review on it. There was a review written by another writer for Rockslide.
Okay.
But I looked at the way it was built. I talked to Mark from EXO down at the Western Hunting Expo in Salt Lake.
Okay, yeah.
Early in 2023, and looked at him in person, and then we connected, and I ended up buying one from EXO to use for the season, and it was amazing. I think I ended up carrying 4 elk out with it.
Oh, wow. Over
the course of the season, and man, it just handles heavy loads extremely well.
Yeah.
It fits nice, no hot spots. It just transfers the weight to your hips really well. By far, it was my favorite piece gear for 2023.
Cool. Yeah. And the reason I wanted to ask you that is I read this, I think on Rockslide, that you probably spend.
It was I spend about 200 days outside every year.
Yeah.
I think that might have been what you read.
Yeah.
But I spend about 40 to 50, sometimes, 40 to 50 nights out hunting in a season. Yeah.
And that's huge. And even if you're not hunting, maybe you're using it for something else too, right? But to me, that says a lot, because there's a lot of reviews out there, and who's to say, if that piece of equipment really do the ringer, right? And with that many hours spent out in the wilderness, it can only mean that you've really put in the work, you've really put in the time. So that tells me a lot about the review that you gave on that product. We'll be right back. Hey everybody, Ricky Bruley here, Vapor Trail. We're really excited about some new features that we've just added to the Gen Integrate X Limb Driver Arrow Rest. Previous model that we had the micro adjust knob that stuck out, and so it made it difficult to remove these one-piece low pro quiver from Matthews. We've eliminated that knob, and now it's an Allen key that you would use to make that adjustment. We thinned up the area here where the activation cord is as well. We really squeezed it in about 1/4 of an inch. It's a little bit lower profile, so now you don't have any issues with the low profile quiver. Comes off nice and easy. You also have, of course, the added feature of the integrated mounting system, so you can mount the arrow rest right to the rail on the riser of the bow. Additional features include new markings that differentiate your locking screws from your windage and elevation screws. All Vapor Trail arrow rests have a free-floating head, providing more forgiveness and greater downrange accuracy. No need for a bow press. Simply tie the activation cord to the limb and say goodbye to interference with cam timing caused by cable-driven arrow rests. The new and improved GI8X is available and ready to ship. Trust the originators of limb-driven technology and head over to our website at vaportrailarchery.com or Stop into your local archery pro shop to get yours today. So, hey folks, here we are back again, me and Josh. We're having a conversation last week. I had some technical difficulties, and so we just basically had to call it and come back again. So, Josh, I just want to say thank you. I appreciate your patience, and I really appreciate you coming back on here so we can finish this thing up.
Yeah, you bet. No problem. Yeah. Not an issue on my end.
So where we ended was we were talking about your favorite piece of gear, and that was the Exos pack that you were talking about, and also kind of went into the amount of time that you spend out in the wilderness, 200 plus days, because of your pastime and also because of your profession. And I noticed on your Instagram page that you had some success this year with elk, and so I just wanted to ask if you would mind telling that story about how that all went down.
Yeah, you bet. So I hunted a lot in September, and I had some close calls with elk. And I had two tags in my pocket. One was a Montana General tag, which I'm a resident of, and then I also had a non-resident Idaho tag. And I don't live too far from Idaho, so I could, bounce over and hunt it pretty quick if
Mm-hmm.
I need to.
Yeah.
But I didn't get a chance to really get in there in archery season because I was just so focused on hunting Montana.
Right.
So yeah, I it was coming down to the wire in Montana. Our archery season runs into mid-October, but I had a friend coming. David Brinker was coming over to go
Mm.
hunt in Idaho with me with our rifles. So I was like, man, if I'm going to kill a bull in Montana with my bow, I better do it. I have this weekend
Mm-hmm.
because Idaho started on the 10th. And I believe it was the 7th when I killed this Montana bull, but spoiler alert. Um, so yeah, I was working down on this river project, and we were working late like a Friday, and I was just antsy to get out of there. And my coworker was like, "What are you so wound up about?" I'm like, "Dude, I gotta go home and get my stuff together. I need to go. This is my last weekend I can hunt.
Mm-hmm.
And then like my archery season is effectively over in Montana, so I need to go." And I was like, "I have a date tomorrow with a bull at noon. I'm gonna go kill a bull at noon tomorrow." And
Yeah.
the USGS guy's like, "Noon? Are you kidding me?" Yeah, whatever. I'm like, "No, man, this really I like a lot of the elk I kill are midday."
Yeah.
And I went in and told him all about, my theory on that.
Mm-hmm.
So the next morning, me and a buddy, we went up into the mountains. We hiked in, hunted, heard a couple bulls, glassed some across the drainage, but there were some fairly close. And
Mm-hmm.
we ended up just kind of pushing them through the timber, and they just kept just going around the mountain. And it's just this big rounded knob that doesn't have any real defining features
Mm-hmm.
other than it's just, you can just tell you're going around the mountain just by where the sun is in the sky. That's about it.
Yeah.
So, but we kept hearing this bull. He was just seemed further and further away, but we just couldn't like catch up and really pinpoint. And finally we kind of lost where he was headed. And so I'd hunted up there a few times.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'd killed a couple bulls in there in the past, but I had a good idea where these elk like to go bed midday. So I told Tyler, my hunting partner at the time, was like, let's get down onto this little bench, and I think right there's where that bull's going to end up. It's north facing, it's brushier than heck. It's
Mm-hmm.
kind of right on the edge of this little kind of some more open timber. I was like, that's a good spot. I think he's gonna hang up in there, and if we're gonna have a chance at this bull, this is where it's gonna happen. And so we were cruising down, and we ended up bumping a cow and a calf out of their beds just right before we get to this big bench.
Oh,
And they didn't really know it was up, but they kind of caught some movement, so they spooked out to
shoot.
our right, and that's what I thought. I was like, oh dang it, but nothing else took off.
Mm-hmm.
And so we kind of dropped down to where they kind of just bumped out, and we called a few times, and we didn't hear anything, and we are just getting ready to leave. And my buddy started walking away, and I heard a really light, fluty bugle that sounded fairly close. And I grabbed him. I'm like, did you hear that, Tyler? And he's like, no, I didn't. Because he was walking and making noise. And it was light enough for like if you were making a footstep or something, it would have covered up the sound.
Sure.
So I said, Dad, I heard one. I swear I heard one. So I bugled again, and we kind of stood there, and I thought I heard a thump. And so I looked at him, and he looked at me, and we both kind of had that look. Yeah, I heard that too. And, and as soon as you start hearing that thump, thump, it's about to happen, because it's kind of weird how that ground kind of sounds hollow up in the Alpine, and it's like, oh, that was definitely hooves. Yeah. So we both just ripped an arrow out and got it knocked, and we were standing there and trying to listen, and then like right in front of us, I don't know, 30 yards away, I could just see these tines coming up the hill, just slowly being revealed as he walked up and kind of through some brush, and eventually, he walks up and just walks straight in front of us, stops at about 20 yards, just looking right to where he heard us call. He just had us pinpointed, couldn't see us, but we're standing there wide up. You're just standing straight up. I wouldn't say wide open. We had some brush behind us to break up our outline, but he just stood there and stared, and it was a small 5-point. And pretty soon he's just like, well, that's where the sound came from. That's where I'm headed. So he just started walking. And I thought, man, he's going to step within like 5 feet of me and spook, or he's going to be within, I might as well just try to draw my bow as he's coming in. There's a little Christmas tree that his eyeball was going to pass behind. Sure. And I thought, man, if I can get that bow back as his eyeball passes behind that tree, I have a chance. Yeah. And so I drew as slow as I could, and just as my cam rocked over, he kind of caught that movement, and he just jumped and spooked and looked back, and I cow called too. I had a reed in my mouth. So I cow called at full draw, and he's looking back over his shoulder, and it was a hard quartering shot, but he was close enough, and I'm just like, I've just buried that pin right in front of his hip, and thought, well, here we go. Boom. I just cut it loose and buried up to the knock, and he whirled and ran over the hill. And Tyler's, oh man, nice shot. That's a dead bull. I think I saw him stumble and fall as he was going over the rise. And I was like, yeah, that was perfect tonight. I pulled out my phone and looked at it. It was like 12:15. So it's like 15 minutes late.
There you go. That's cool.
Yeah, he ran down the hill, and he kind of stumbled around, and he left a good blood trail. And so that was my last minute bull. So,
that's cool.
In Montana. So I had a data. We packed half of them out that night, and then we came back the next day, packed the other half out. And then the following day, Brinker was showing up.
Okay.
So I got up really early, drove my meat to the meat locker, came back, met him, and then we had packed up. I loaded up my backpack, and then we headed to Idaho, and then hiked in 5 miles that night back into the backcountry to go hunt Idaho. The next day, I killed a bull in Idaho with my rifle, opening day of Idaho rifle season. Packed cool. That bull kind of up out of this canyon and hung it on a ridge, went back and got our camp, packed it out in the rain. Very next day, went back in and packed elk quarters. So it was like 5 days of like nonstop packing stuff, heavy loads. So I was whooped by the end of that little.
I bet. And how about, so was David just tagging along, or did he have a tag too? And did he fill his, or?
Yeah, he had a tag as well. He was here. Let's see. So the day he went and hunted the day I packed the Idaho bull out, and then I took a day off. So he went and hunted by himself again. And then I went and hunted with him a little bit more. But yeah, it rained. It got really wet. The elk kind of stopped bugling. They got hunkered down. We weren't getting into a whole lot. And he's just like, yeah, I think I might just head home and catch my kid's soccer game.
There you go.
I don't blame him. The hunting was getting difficult.
Right.
And he had a Montana tag. He had 3 tags. So he had an Oregon, an Idaho, and a Montana tag. So
automatically associate elk hunting with rain because I've only had one opportunity to elk hunt, and I hunted Idaho in 2019, and that's all it did was rain. I mean, every day it was rain, 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 rain. It just nonstop. I mean, but at the same time, we had good gear, so it wasn't the end of it. But it was me and another buddy of mine, and then we didn't have, all we were doing was just laying on Tyvek underneath like a Kafaru canopy.
Yeah.
So yeah, one night it was coming down so hard that we had to we just threw everything in our packs and we just hiked I think it was like almost 5 miles in. We hiked all the way out and then just like hunkered down in the truck for a little while so our gear could dry out, and then came back out the next morning. But that was a blast. I mean, I had some opportunities at a real nice bull. I kind of blew that whole deal, and then didn't end up panning out. But it was a really fun trip. We actually ran into a group of individuals. I think it was like 6 or 7 guys from Wisconsin, and they were all like in their 60s and 70s, and they had hiked all the way up there. They brought they had a pack horse in with them too to bring in a lot of their gear, and it was really cool because they were like, yeah, if you get an elk, we'll pack it out for you with our horses. And I was
Ooh,
like,
yeah.
wow, that's awesome. So I ended up shooting a couple of grouse while I was out there too, and so I ended up giving them the grouse, just as like prepayment for helping us get our elk out. But they didn't need to help us, unfortunately. But it's tough. It is though. I mean, it's amazing everything that has to come together, like you're saying. You know what I mean? Even just being conscious of that bull's eye going behind that tree, all those little things. Some of the western hunting I've done for mule deer when I was kind of cutting my teeth on that, and this friend of mine that I was hunting out there with, he's like, okay, we're going to come up over this rise, and the bull or that mule deer is going to be right down there. But he's like, we need to wait because we had the sun kind of behind us. He's like, we need to wait for a cloud to come in and cover that sunlight because otherwise we're going to cast that shadow over our heads. And I would have never thought of that. You know what I mean? And again, I was brand new to it, but
Yeah.
just some of those, even just the littlest details that you got to think about that could get you
Hmm.
busted, So
Yeah. I mean, for like hunting elk, it's like it's always like being seen. Like we're dealing with such close engagement distances that
hmm
they'll pick up on any movement,
yeah,
and they're looking, and so I'm always watching their eyeball. I mean,
yeah,
if I can't see their eyeball, I feel pretty safe moving, but
hmm
I am pretty rock still when,
yeah,
even if I can't see their eyeball. But I'm always watching that, and I use that to time my draw, and
hmm
that's because if you can see their eyeball, they're going to see you move
right,
at that distance. And I
sure,
mean, that's when the things come apart. I got lucky, and that bull stopped to look back because he wasn't quite sure what exactly he saw. And I'd
hmm
also cow called, and there were elk in the area. So I think that saved my bacon on that one. But man, a big bull, he'd have turned, if that would have been a big, like an old bull, he'd have turned
hmm
inside out getting out of there, and there's no
yeah.
way I had another shot at him.
Yeah, that's cool. And then, and to speak of what you're saying, one of the opportunities that I had, and again, this attributes to my, rookiness when it comes to that kind of stuff, but just trying to like understanding how far away a bull is, was something that I was learning. And so we had a setup where my buddy stayed kind of down there was a bull up on this rise, and so he's kind of stayed down low, and he was like, go about 100 yards up the hill there, and then just kind of tuck yourself into some brush, and I'll call, and then hopefully we can lead them past, uh, and you can get a shot. And I'm like, perfect. So I'm working my way up there, and I can hear him bugling, and I'm like, okay, he's still a little ways out there. So I've got some room here where I can, maybe work my way in just a little bit closer. And as I'm working my way in, just really nice and slow and nice and easy. And all of a sudden I come around this bush, and I've got an arrow knock to just in case. And all of a sudden I can see just the back of, that horizontal line of his back. There's a big piece of deadfall right there, but I can just see his back over the top of that. And I can see the tines just kind of moving around a little
Ooh.
bit. And it's probably, I mean, we're talking not even 20 yards, probably 18 yards or so. And so I just froze, and I was just sitting there, and all of a sudden he just picks his head up and looks right at me. And I'm like, oh boy, like I'm kind of out in the open too, you know, and I'm on the hillside, so I don't have a lot of brush behind me at that point. And I'm just like, oh man, I'm just like, okay, I'm going to squint my eyes and just hope that my camo does the work. And it didn't. What I should have probably done was just at least tried to draw my bow, and maybe he would, you know, like you said, maybe kind of turn and then move and look back or something. But I just froze and hopes that he would put his head back down. But no, he was out of there, peeled out, and then he just shredded it like an 8-foot pine tree. He just went over and just shredded it and turned it into a toothpick, man. So he was pretty fired up, but we never saw him again. So that's my closest encounter. And it was, oh man, that right there had me hooked. So I can't wait to get back.
Oh, it's exciting. It's what I live for every year. It's like the best time of the year, period.
Well, folks, that brings us to the end of this episode. Josh, thanks again so much for your time today. I appreciate your patience and coming back on the show so that we can finish this up. Where can people find you if they want to follow your journey and get in touch with you?
They can find me on Instagram. It's Josh _Boyd _Montana, maybe something like that. If you just type that in, you _MT. If you type that in, you'll find me. Or you could find me over on Rockslide, which is the website that I do most of the gear reviews for. And my username there is just Josh Boyd. And I have reviews posted on the main page. You can find those, check them out, or you can just find me in the forums there. I'll go and visit those like once a day, answer questions and keep up with things.
Yeah. So, and I've gone through a handful of those reviews too. Great reviews. And your writing you're a great writer. And so everybody make sure you go check them out. And there you have it, folks. Make sure you head over to the Range Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and soon X and TikTok as well. I'm working on some dance moves here, so that's probably how we'll debut that. Also, be sure to head over to the Vapor Trail and Stoker Eyes social channels and give us a follow over there. And don't forget about the video version of this podcast on the Vapor Trail YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe, give us a like, and hit that bell so you can be up to date on all things archery. And of course, if you're listening, do me a favor, give us a rating and make certain that you give us 5 stars. And with that, we are going to pack up our bows and we are hitting the range. Have a great day, everybody. Vapor Trail is now offering an exclusive discount to the Range Podcast listeners. Enter promo code TRP15, that's TRP15, at checkout for 15% off VTX bowstrings and Vapor Trail and Stoker Eyes branded t-shirts, hats, and other gear.